Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Granny Stories. I'm Margaret, and today I'm sharing the most transformative story of my life. The day I discovered what my daughter really thought of me after 8 years of sacrifice, and how that devastating moment led to the most beautiful transformation I never saw coming. This is a longer story today, so grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and settle in for a journey that I promise will be worth every minute. But before we dive in, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. It really helps our channel grow and ensures you never miss stories like this one that could change your perspective on family, boundaries, and self-worth. I want to know where you're watching from around the world, so drop your location in the comments below. I love connecting with all of you beautiful souls. Today's special shout out goes to Martha Johnson from Phoenix, Arizona. Thank you for being part of our Granny Stories family and for your beautiful comment last week about finding strength in unexpected places. Now, let me tell you about the day that changed everything. But I warn you, what you're about to hear might shock you, inspire you, and maybe even save you from making the same mistakes I did for 8 long years. The life I built on sacrifice before I tell you about that devastating day. Let me paint you a picture of who I was. My name is Margaret Chen. I'm 58 years old, and for most of my adult life, I thought I knew what love and family meant. I thought sacrifice was the same as love, and that giving until it hurt was what good mothers did. If you've ever felt like you're giving more than you're receiving in your relationships, keep watching, because what happens next will completely change how you think about family dynamics. I met my husband Robert when I was 25. He was this gentle, patient man who worked as an electrician and had this amazing way with animals. We'd spend our weekends volunteering at the local animal shelter, and he'd always joke that I had a gift that scared, abandoned animals would calm down the moment I spoke to them. "You should do something with that, Maggie," he'd say, using the nickname only he was allowed to use. "Maybe start your own business someday." We had Lisa when I was 27. She was this beautiful, spirited little girl with Robert's stubborn streak and my determination. From the start, she was headstrong, always testing boundaries, always convinced she knew better than everyone else. But she was ours, and we adored her. Robert and I had plans, big dreams. We'd save for years to eventually open our own pet care business, maybe a grooming salon combined with daycare for working pet owners. We had it all mapped out, the location we wanted, the equipment we'd need, even the name Robert and Margaret's Pet Paradise. It sounds silly now, but back then, it felt like our golden future was just waiting for us to be brave enough to reach for it. Then, when Lisa was 22 and I was 49, everything changed in a single phone call. "Mrs. Chen." The voice on the other end was professional, clinical. "I'm calling from Metro General Hospital. Your husband Robert has been in an accident at the construction site. You need to come immediately." I remember the drive to the hospital like it was yesterday. My hand shaking on the steering wheel. Lisa in the passenger seat trying to call Robert's phone over and over. Both of us refusing to believe what we already knew in our hearts. Robert died that afternoon. A faulty electrical line, they said. Quick and painless, they promised, though I'm not sure how they could know that. What I do know is that in one afternoon, I lost my husband, my best friend, my business partner, and my vision of the future all at once. The grief was overwhelming. There were days I couldn't get out of bed. Days when the animal shelter was the only place I could find any peace. The dogs and cats didn't need me to be strong or put together. They just needed me to be present, and somehow, caring for them helped me remember how to care for myself. Lisa was dealing with her own grief, of course. She'd been Daddy's little girl, and losing Robert hit her hard. But she was also newly married to Derek, had her own apartment, and seemed to be building her own life. I was proud of her independence, even as I struggled with my own loneliness. For about a year, we both healed in our separate ways. I threw myself into volunteer work at the shelter, eventually taking a part-time paid position as their senior caregiver. The pay wasn't much, but combined with Robert's life insurance and my small savings, I was getting by. I'd even started sketching out business plans again, maybe a smaller version of what Robert and I had dreamed of, but still something that honored his memory and my passion. Then came the phone call that changed everything. Asterisk, and trust me, you won't believe what Lisa asked me to do. The crisis that rewrote my life, it was a Tuesday evening in March, almost exactly 2 years after Robert's death. I was at the shelter, staying late to comfort a German shepherd named Max, who'd been brought in after his elderly owner passed away. Max reminded me so much of Robert's gentle nature, this big, strong dog who just wanted to be useful and loved. My phone rang at 8:47 p.m. I remember the time because I'd been thinking I should head home soon. Mom, Lisa's voice was shaky, desperate in a way I'd never heard before. Mom, I need you. What's wrong, sweetheart? What happened? Derek left. The words came out in a sob. He's been having an affair for months, Mom. He packed his stuff today and moved in with her. He says he doesn't want to be tied down anymore. Doesn't want the responsibility. My heart broke for her. At 24, Lisa had seemed so confident, so sure of her choices. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? Where are you? I'm at the apartment, but Mom. Her voice broke completely. Derek took his name off the lease last month. The landlord called today. Without his income, I can't afford the rent. I'm going to lose everything. What she told me next still gives me chills when I think about it. Derek hadn't just left her emotionally devastated. He'd left her financially ruined. She was pregnant, 3 months along, something she'd been planning to tell me the next weekend. She had about $200 in her checking account. The rent was $1,200 a month, due in 10 days. I don't know what to do, she sobbed. I can't raise a baby on the street, Mom. I can't do this alone. Asterisk now, before I tell you what I did next, I want you to think about this. What would you have done in my situation? Put your answer in the comments. I'm curious to see how many of you would have made the same choice I did. Asterisk, I didn't hesitate. How could I? This was my daughter, my grandchild. This was family in crisis. We'll figure it out, I promised her, just like Robert would have. You're not alone, Lisa. We'll figure it out together. That night, I sat in my kitchen with my calculator, Robert's life insurance papers, and my modest savings account statement spread across the table. The numbers were stark, but they told a clear story. I could help her. I had enough saved to cover her rent for several months, enough to help her get back on her feet, enough to make sure my grandchild would be safe. The pet grooming business could wait. Family came first. That's what I told myself as I transferred the first rent payment from my business savings account to Lisa's landlord. Just temporary, until she found her footing. Asterisk, little did I know. That single decision would cost me over $80,000 and nearly a decade of my life. But the real cost? That was something I wouldn't discover until much later. Asterisk, except temporary, turned into something else entirely. The spiral of sacrifice Tommy was born 6 months later, a beautiful, healthy baby boy who looked exactly like Robert around the eyes. I was in the delivery room, holding Lisa's hand, promising her that everything would be okay. And in that moment, looking at this perfect little person who was part of our family's future, I meant every word. Lisa struggled with postpartum depression. She couldn't work those first few months, and the bills kept coming. rent, utilities, diapers, formula, doctor visits. I found myself covering more and more expenses, dipping deeper into the life insurance money, postponing my own dreams month after month. It's just until I can get back on my feet, Mom, Lisa would say during those late night phone calls when Tommy was crying and she felt overwhelmed. Once I find a decent job, once I get daycare figured out, I'll pay you back everything. I promise. I believed her. Of course I believed her. She was my daughter, and she was trying her best in an impossible situation. When Tommy was 2, Lisa met James. He seemed nice enough, steady job, good with Tommy, talked about wanting to build a real family. They moved in together after dating for 8 months, and for a brief, shining moment, I thought my financial support could finally come to an end. James and I are looking at getting our own place, Lisa told me over coffee one afternoon. Something bigger, where Tommy can have his own room. I might actually be able to pay you back soon, Mom. But instead of ending, my support expanded. The new apartment was more expensive. James's job didn't pay as well as they'd hoped. Lisa was working part-time at a retail store, but daycare costs ate up most of her paycheck. And now there were 3 people to support instead of 2. It's still temporary, she assured me when I started to voice concerns about my dwindling savings. James is interviewing for better positions. I'm looking into night school to get a better qualification. This is all investment in our future, Mom. In Tommy's future. The years blended together in a haze of emergency calls and urgent transfers. James's car needed repairs. Could I help with $800? Tommy needed new clothes for school and school supplies. Another $300. Lisa had gotten sick and missed too much work. Could I cover rent this month? Their hot water heater broke down. Could I loan them $600 for a replacement? Each request came with gratitude, promises, and explanations about how this was the last time, how things were about to turn around. And each time I said yes. What else could I do? Let my grandson go without? Let them face eviction? Let my daughter lose hope when she was working so hard to build a better life? By the time Tommy was 6, I'd been supporting them financially for almost 8 years. My business savings were completely gone. Robert's life insurance money had evaporated one emergency at a time. I was living paycheck to paycheck from my part-time shelter job, using credit cards to bridge the gap when Lisa's needs exceeded what I could afford. Asterisk if this sounds familiar to you. If you're supporting an adult child who keeps promising to pay you back next month, then you need to hear what happens next. Because what I discovered will shock you. Asterisk, I'd even taken out a small loan against my house, just $10,000 to help with a particularly expensive month when James had lost his job temporarily. It was supposed to be short term, just until they got back on their feet. But here's what I didn't understand at the time. I wasn't helping Lisa build independence. I was enabling her to avoid it. The pattern I couldn't see looking back now. I can see the patterns that I was blind to then. Every conversation we had somehow centered around Lisa's needs, Lisa's struggles, Lisa's dreams that just needed a little more financial support to come true. Asterisk comment below if you've ever been in a relationship where every conversation somehow becomes about the other person's problems. You're not alone. Asterisk when I'd mention feeling tired or stressed about money. Lisa would redirect the conversation back to her own challenges. I know it's hard, Mom, but you can't imagine the pressure I'm under. James is working overtime, but his boss is impossible. And Tommy's school wants us to buy all these supplies. When I'd hint that maybe it was time to scale back my support, she'd get defensive. I never asked to be a single mother, Mom. I never asked for Derek to abandon us. I'm doing my best here, and I thought family was supposed to support each other. When I talk about possibly starting my pet grooming business, her response was always the same mixture of dismissal and concern. Mom, starting a business at your age is so risky. What if it fails? What if you lose the house? Don't you think it's better to focus on stability right now? She never said it outright, but the message was clear. My dreams weren't as important as her needs. My financial security wasn't as crucial as her comfort. My future plans could wait indefinitely as long as her present problems required attention. And I accepted it. I accepted it because I loved her, because I loved Tommy, and because I'd somehow convinced myself that being a good mother meant sacrificing everything for your child's well-being, no matter how old that child was. The animal shelter became my escape. There, I was Margaret the dog whisperer, Margaret who could calm a traumatized animal with just her voice, Margaret whose expertise was valued and respected. Dr. Williams, the shelter's veterinarian, often commented on my natural gift with difficult animals. You should really consider veterinary assistant training, she told me one afternoon as we worked together to help a scared cat who'd been found abandoned. You have such a calming presence with animals. Have you ever thought about making this more than volunteer work? I had thought about it. I'd thought about it constantly. But every time I considered applying for training programs or looking into career changes, there was another crisis with Lisa, another emergency that needed my immediate attention and financial support. My social life had dwindled to almost nothing. Friends would invite me to dinner or weekend trips, but I always had to decline. Either I was babysitting Tommy, or I couldn't afford the expense, or Lisa needed me for something urgent. You deserve a life too, Margaret. My friend Susan told me one day after I'd canceled our lunch plans for the third time to help Lisa move to yet another apartment. When was the last time you did something just for yourself? I couldn't remember. And that should have been a warning sign, but I was too deep in the pattern to see it clearly. Asterisk, stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you next is the moment everything changed. And it might be one of the most painful things you'll ever hear a daughter say about her mother. The birthday party set up, fast forward to last March, my 58th birthday. I'd been looking forward to this small celebration for weeks. Not because I particularly cared about birthdays anymore, but because it had been so long since I'd had everyone together in my home for a happy occasion. I'd planned everything carefully. Lisa would bring Tommy, now 16 and busy with school, but still my sweet grandson who always remembered to call on holidays. My sister Janet was coming along with her husband Bill. My neighbor Mrs. Patterson had promised to stop by. A few other family friends who'd stayed in touch over the years. I bought a bottle of wine, a nice one, not the usual cheap bottle I normally allowed myself. I'd made my famous lasagna, the recipe Robert had always loved. I'd even splurged on fresh flowers for the dining room table. Lisa had offered to help with decorations, and I was so touched by her enthusiasm. She rarely had time to help with family events anymore. Always too busy with work or James, or some crisis that needed immediate attention. But for my birthday, she'd made time. She arrived early that Saturday with balloons and streamers, and for a moment it felt like the old days when she was younger and we'd spend hours together preparing for holiday celebrations. "This is going to be so nice, Mom," she said as we hung the balloons in the living room. "It's been forever since we've all gotten together like this." Tommy showed up around noon with his camera equipment. He'd been documenting family events lately for some school project about oral history and family traditions. I was proud of his initiative, proud that he cared about preserving memories. "Mind if I record some of the party, Grandma?" he asked, setting up his phone on a small tripod in the corner of the living room. "It's for my media studies class." We're supposed to capture real family interactions. Of course, sweetheart. That sounds like a wonderful project. I remember feeling so content as guests started arriving. Janet brought her famous potato salad. Mrs. Patterson came with a beautiful bouquet from her garden. Bill entertained everyone with his stories from his recent fishing trip. For the first time in months, I felt relaxed, surrounded by family, celebrating in my own home, watching my grandson document our family traditions. It felt like the kind of afternoon Robert would have loved. I was in the kitchen preparing coffee when I noticed how animated the conversation had become in the living room. Lisa was holding court, gesturing expressively, clearly telling some story that had everyone's attention. I could hear laughter, Janet's distinctive giggle, even Mrs. Patterson chuckling. I smiled to myself, happy that Lisa was enjoying herself, happy that everyone was having such a good time. I took my time with the coffee, adding the real cream I'd bought specially for the occasion, arranging the good cookies on my mother's china plate. If I'd known what Lisa was actually saying in that living room, I would have dropped everything and run in to stop her. But I didn't know. I thought I was hearing the sounds of family joy. I thought my daughter was celebrating me, not destroying me. Asterisk what happened next is something no parent should ever have to experience. If you need to take a moment to prepare yourself, please do. And if this story is helping you see patterns in your own life, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. The discovery that shattered everything. I was loading the dishwasher at around 9 p.m., humming softly to myself and replaying the afternoon sweet moments when my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. Tommy had sent me a link with several crying face emojis and a message that made my blood run cold. Grandma, you need to see this. I'm so sorry. I didn't know she would say those things. My hands were still sudsy from the dishes, but I dried them quickly and clicked the link. What I saw changed everything. There was my living room, decorated with the balloons Lisa and I had hung together that morning. There were my family and friends, sitting on my furniture, drinking my wine, eating my food. And there was my daughter, holding my wine glass, gesticulating dramatically as she told everyone exactly what she thought of her mother. My mother thinks volunteering at the animal shelter makes her some kind of important person, Lisa was saying, rolling her eyes in exaggerated fashion. She couldn't handle a real job after Dad died, so now she plays with puppies all day like some desperate old woman trying to feel relevant. I stood frozen in my kitchen, phone shaking in my hands as my daughter continued her performance. It's honestly embarrassing, she continued, and I could hear the whine in her voice, could see how she was playing to her audience. All these big dreams about helping animals and opening some business, when really she's just cleaning dog cages and living on food stamps like she's some kind of charity case. The cruel laughter that followed cut through me like a knife. But what hurt most was hearing my sister Janet's voice joining in. Remember when she wanted to open that pet grooming business? Lisa continued, turning to Mrs. Patterson with theatrical confidentiality. She came to me asking about investors and business partners. It was so embarrassing. This woman in her 50s thinking she could just start over like some college kid with a dream. Mrs. Patterson looked uncomfortable, but she was smiling politely, the way people do when they're trapped in an awkward conversation. Now she pretends feeding stray cats makes her Mother Teresa or something. Lisa laughed, taking another sip of the wine I'd bought to celebrate my own birthday. She acts like her volunteer work is this noble calling when really, she just can't handle real responsibility. Asterisk if you're feeling angry right now. Imagine how I felt hearing my own daughter say these things about me. But wait, it gets worse. I watched my daughter perform my destruction for several more minutes, each word hitting me like physical blows. She talked about my pathetic attempts at independence, my desperate need to feel important, my complete inability to understand how the real world works. Mom just doesn't have what it takes, she concluded with a dramatic sigh, reaching for the wine bottle to refill her glass. The wine bottle I had carefully selected and paid for with money I'd saved from buying generic groceries for months. Some people just aren't meant for success. It's sad, really, but that's just who she is. The video continued for another few minutes, but I couldn't watch anymore. I set my phone down on the counter and stared at my reflection in the dark kitchen window. For 8 years, I'd been telling myself that Lisa's occasional sharp comments were just stress talking, that underneath her criticism was gratitude for everything I'd done, that she understood the sacrifices I'd made and appreciated them, even if she didn't always express it well. But this wasn't stress. This wasn't a bad day or a moment of weakness. This was my daughter, relaxed and comfortable, revealing her true thoughts about me to my own family and friends. This was who she really was when she thought I couldn't hear. And the most devastating part? Nobody in that room defended me. Not Janet, who'd known me for 58 years. Not Mrs. Patterson, who'd watched me care for every stray animal in the neighborhood. Not Bill, who'd seen me sacrifice everything for Lisa's family. They just sat there listening to my daughter tear me apart, some of them even laughing along. Asterisk hit the like button if you think what Lisa did was completely wrong. And keep watching, because what I decided to do next will surprise you. The night that changed everything, I don't remember much about cleaning up after the party. I know I moved through the motions, putting away leftover food, washing dishes, taking down the decorations that had looked so festive just hours earlier. But I felt like I was watching someone else do these tasks, like I was floating somewhere above my own life. The phone kept buzzing with text messages, but I couldn't bring myself to look at them. I knew Tommy was trying to reach me, probably panicking about what I'd seen, maybe worried about the consequences for his school project. Around midnight, I finally picked up the phone and read his messages. "Grandma, I'm so sorry." I had no idea she was going to say those things. "I can delete the video if you want. I'll tell my teacher the file got corrupted, or something. Please call me back. I feel terrible that you had to see this. Are you okay? I'm worried about you." I stared at his messages for a long time before I finally typed back, "No, sweetie. Don't delete it. I need to show you something when everyone goes home." Then I did something I'd never done before. I turned off my phone completely and sat in the dark living room where, just hours earlier, my daughter had systematically destroyed me for entertainment. For the first time in 8 years, I allowed myself to really think about what my life had become. I thought about the pet grooming business Robert and I had planned. I thought about the veterinary assistant training Dr. Williams had suggested. I thought about the trips I'd never taken, the friendships I'd let wither, the dreams I'd set aside month after month, year after year. I thought about the $80,000 I'd calculated that I'd spent supporting Lisa. Money that could have bought me a house, started a business, funded a completely different life. I thought about all the times I'd made excuses for Lisa's behavior, all the times I'd convinced myself that her criticism came from love, all the times I'd prioritized her comfort over my own dignity. And for the first time, I let myself feel angry. Not the guilty, quickly suppressed anger I'd felt before when Lisa was particularly dismissive or demanding. This was clean, pure anger at the injustice of it all. Anger at myself for accepting so little respect. Anger at Lisa for taking advantage of my love. Anger at everyone in that room who'd listened to her tear me down without saying a word in my defense. I sat in that darkness until dawn, and by the time the sun came up, I knew exactly what I was going to do. Asterisk, what I decided to do next changed everything. But first, let me show you exactly how much I'd been sacrificing for someone who clearly didn't appreciate it. The documentation of Truth Sunday morning, I pulled out my old shoebox from under my bed, my grandmother's recipe box that had become my informal filing system for anything related to Lisa's support. Robert used to tease me about my organizational system, but his business training had taught me to keep records of everything. I spread 8 years of documentation across my kitchen table. Bank statements showing transfers to Lisa's landlord, receipts for Tommy's school supplies and clothes, grocery receipts from the countless times I'd stocked her kitchen, utility bills I'd paid when she was short, car repair bills I'd covered, medical co-payments for Tommy that I'd handled. There were also the less tangible records. Appointment calendars showing all the days I'd babysat Tommy, work schedules I'd adjusted to accommodate Lisa's needs, social invitations I'd declined because she needed help with something urgent. As I organized everything chronologically, the scope of my sacrifice became undeniable. This wasn't occasional help during genuine emergencies. This was systematic financial support that had lasted nearly a decade, totaling over $80,000 in direct expenses, not counting the opportunity costs of dreams deferred and plans abandoned. Asterisk $80,000. That's more than many people's annual salary. And that was just the money. It doesn't include the thousands of hours of free babysitting, the emotional support, the constant availability for every crisis. Asterisk by noon, I'd created a comprehensive spreadsheet documenting every payment, every favor, every sacrifice. The numbers told a story I'd been too close to see clearly. Then I called Tommy. "Grandma." His voice was worried, uncertain. "Are you okay? I've been so worried since last night. Can you come over, sweetheart? I need to talk to you privately, and I need to show you some things." He arrived 20 minutes later, still in his pajamas, and clearly having rushed over from his father's house where he stayed on weekends. "Grandma, I'm so sorry about the live stream. I was just filming for my class project. I had no idea Mom was going to say those horrible things about you." I hugged him tightly. "Tommy, honey, this isn't your fault. Actually, you did me a huge favor." His confusion was obvious as I led him to the kitchen table covered with financial documents. "Sit down, sweetheart. I want to show you something that I think you're old enough to understand." For the next hour, I walked Tommy through the financial reality of what I'd been doing for his family. I showed him the bank transfers, the loan payments, the receipts. I explained how I'd liquidated my retirement savings, used up Robert's life insurance money, and taken out loans to support them. "Grandma," he whispered, looking at the spreadsheet total, "this is over $80,000. "Yes, it is. And that's just the direct financial support. It doesn't include all the babysitting, the driving to appointments, the emergency childcare, the weekend help." Tommy looked up from the papers, his young face showing a mature understanding that broke my heart. "And Mom calls you a failure? She says you don't have what it takes." Apparently so. He was quiet for several minutes, processing what I'd shown him. Then he asked the question that changed everything. "So what are you going to do now, Grandma?" Asterisk before I tell you what I decided, I want you to think about this. What would you do if you discovered that someone you'd been supporting for 8 years was mocking you behind your back? Share your thoughts in the comments. Asterisk, I took the shoebox back and closed it firmly. "I'm done, Tommy. I've already started the process of removing myself from your mother's lease guarantee. I'm withdrawing my financial support completely. You're not going to confront her about the video?" I shook my head. What would be the point? She'd just make excuses, or tell me I was being too sensitive, or taking things out of context. The video shows exactly who she is when she thinks I can't hear. I believe her. I showed Tommy the business plan I'd written years earlier, the one I'd almost thrown away several times when Lisa's crises seemed more urgent than my dreams. I've been putting aside a little money each month, I explained, opening my banking app. Not much, but enough to start over. I'm 58 years old, Tommy. If I'm going to build the life I want, I need to start now. As I spoke, I transferred the funds I'd set aside for Lisa's next rent payment into my business account. It was only $1,200, but it felt like the most important financial transaction I'd ever made. Wow, Grandma, Tommy said quietly. Are you sure about this? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Asterisk, what happened next was like watching dominoes fall. One decision led to another, and before I knew it, I was completely transforming my life. Keep watching to see how quickly things can change when you finally decide to choose yourself. The implementation of Independence Monday morning, I called the apartment management company where Lisa lived. I'd been co-signing her lease and providing financial guarantees for 6 years, ever since she and James had moved into their current place. Harborview Apartments, this is Michelle. Hello, this is Margaret Chen. I need to remove myself as a guarantor from the lease for apartment 4B. Tenant Lisa Chun. Oh, okay. May I ask the reason for the change? Personal circumstances have changed. I'll no longer be able to provide financial backing for this lease. Michelle was professional and efficient. I understand, Mrs. Chun. However, I should inform you that removing guarantor status requires a 30-day notice, and the primary tenant will need to qualify for the lease independently or find a replacement guarantor. I understand completely. Please send all paperwork to my address and make sure Lisa receives notification as well. Will the 30-day notice period give her adequate time to make alternative arrangements? 30 days is more than fair, I said, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. After hanging up, I spent the rest of the day implementing what I thought of as my independence plan. I called my credit card companies to set up payment plans for the debt I'd accumulated supporting Lisa. I scheduled appointments with a financial advisor to discuss rebuilding my retirement savings. I researched small business loans and certification programs for pet grooming. Most importantly, I wrote a letter to my extended family. Dear family, I began, I am writing to inform you of some important changes in my relationship with Lisa and her family. After 8 years of providing comprehensive financial and childcare support, I have decided to discontinue this assistance effective immediately. I attached the spreadsheet documenting every payment, every sacrifice, every instance of support I provided. The evidence was undeniable. This decision comes after careful consideration and a recent realization that my efforts have not been appreciated or valued in the way I had hoped. I wanted to inform all of you because Lisa may need assistance going forward, and I thought you should have a complete picture of the support she's been receiving. I sent the email to everyone who'd been at the birthday party, plus several other family members who might be called upon to help Lisa in the coming weeks. The responses started almost immediately. Janet was appalled. Margaret, this seems very extreme. Lisa is family. Surely whatever argument you two had can be worked out. Bill was practical. Have you considered family counseling? This seems like a communication issue more than a financial one. Mrs. Patterson was concerned. I hope you're not making decisions based on hurt feelings. Lisa has been through so much. Only my elderly Aunt Rose, Robert's sister, seemed to understand. Her response was simple. It takes real courage to stand up for yourself, dear. Call me if you need someone to talk to. I blocked Lisa's number before she could call with her inevitable outrage and demands. I muted notifications from the family members who seemed more concerned about Lisa's comfort than my well-being. For the first time in years, my phone was quiet, and the silence was peaceful. Asterisk if you've ever had to cut contact with a toxic family member. You know exactly how I was feeling. It's terrifying and liberating at the same time. But Lisa wasn't going to take this lying down. The confrontation, I refused to have Lisa showed up at my door 3 days later. I saw her through the peephole, pacing on my front porch, clearly agitated, checking her phone repeatedly. She'd probably been calling my block number all morning. That single word felt incredibly powerful. How long had it been since I'd said no to Lisa about anything? I've heard what you really think of me, I continued through the door. I think it's time we both moved on with our lives. What are you talking about? Mom, what's gotten into you? Ask Tommy about his school project. About the video from my birthday party. There was silence on the other side of the door. Then, you're being ridiculous. If this is about something I said when I was drinking... Goodbye, Lisa. Please don't come back here uninvited. I walked away from the door and returned to my business planning. Her protest continued for several more minutes before I heard her car start and drive away. That night, Tommy called me. Grandma, Mom came home really upset. She says you've kicked her out of the family. That's not what happened, sweetie. I've just decided I can't continue supporting her financially or providing free childcare. She's a grown woman with her own life to build. She's freaking out about rent money. Says she might have to move. That's possible, I said gently. Sometimes adults have to make difficult changes when their circumstances change. Tommy was quiet for a moment. Grandma, I want you to know that what she said in the video, that's not how I see you at all. You're the strongest person I know. Those words meant more to me than all the financial statements and business plans combined. Asterisk the support from Tommy meant everything to me. But the rest of the family wasn't going to let this go so easily. What happened next was like something out of a soap opera. The family intervention 2 weeks later, I was leaving the grocery store when I spotted them waiting by my car. Lisa and Janet clearly having planned an ambush intervention. My first instinct was to turn around and go back into the store, but they'd already seen me. Running away would only delay the inevitable confrontation. Mom, Lisa said as I approached, her voice artificially sweet. We really need to talk. Up close, I could see the strain on her face. Her hair was unkempt, and she had the exhausted look of someone who'd been dealing with real consequences for the first time in years. I have nothing to say to you, Lisa. Janet stepped forward, playing her appointed role as mediator. Margaret, Lisa is in real trouble. Her rent is due tomorrow and she doesn't have the money. The landlord has already served her with a notice. Tommy might have to change schools. Is this really what you wanted? Janet continued. To see your own daughter homeless? I looked at both of them carefully before responding. What I wanted was to be treated with basic respect and appreciation. What I wanted was a daughter who valued my sacrifices instead of mocking them behind my back. Lisa's face went pale. What are you talking about? I saw the video, Lisa. Tommy's live stream from my birthday party. I heard everything you said about me. Janet looked confused. What video? Lisa, what is she talking about? I almost laughed at Lisa's obvious panic. She hadn't told her allies about the video, probably hoping I'd never find out about it. Show her if you want, I told Lisa. Or don't. It doesn't change anything. Lisa tried to recover. Mom, if I said something that hurt your feelings, I'm sorry. But this is an extreme overreaction. I'm facing eviction. Tommy needs stability. Something inside me finally snapped. 8 years of suppressed resentment bubbled to the surface. Extreme overreaction? I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Let me tell you what we've been through together, Lisa. I spent over $80,000 supporting your lifestyle. I put my entire retirement on hold. I postponed every dream. I had to make sure you were comfortable. My hands were shaking now, but I couldn't stop. I babysat Tommy every weekend for years. I drove you to appointments, covered your emergencies, sacrificed my social life and my future to make sure you never had to face real consequences. And in return, you called me pathetic. You mocked my volunteer work while living off my sacrifice. You laughed at my dreams while spending my money. Janet was staring at Lisa with growing understanding and dismay. I sent documentation to the entire family, I continued. Every payment, every favor, every sacrifice is recorded. So don't stand here and act like I'm the villain. I turned to Janet. She's living with you now, right? Has she asked you for rent money yet? How many of her bills have you offered to pay? How many times have you babysat this week? Janet's silence was answer enough. That's what I thought, I said, heading toward my car. I wish you both well, but I won't be manipulated anymore. This isn't over, Lisa called after me. You can't just abandon family. I paused with my hand on the car door. You're right about one thing, Lisa. Family doesn't abandon family, but family also doesn't take advantage of each other for years, and family doesn't tear each other down for entertainment. So maybe you should ask yourself who really abandoned whom first. As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of Lisa in my rearview mirror, gesturing wildly at Janet. Some things never change, I thought, but I had changed completely. Asterisk at this point, I felt more empowered than I had in years. But the real transformation was just beginning. What I did next surprised even me. The business of rebuilding the next 3 months passed in a whirlwind of activity that reminded me what it felt like to have energy and purpose. Without the constant drain of Lisa's crises and needs, I discovered I had more mental and emotional resources than I'd realized. I enrolled in an accelerated pet grooming certification program that met on weekends. At 58, I was by far the oldest student, but my years of experience with animals at the shelter gave me advantages the younger students didn't have. I understood animal behavior. I could read stress signals, and I had a natural calming presence that you can't learn from textbooks. Margaret, you're a natural, said Jessica, my instructor, after watching me work with a particularly anxious poodle. Have you considered specializing in traumatized or rescue animals? There's a real need for groomers who can handle difficult cases. The idea intrigued me. I'd always been drawn to the shelter animals that others found challenging. The biters, the fearful ones, the dogs and cats that had been so damaged by their experiences that they'd given up trusting humans. I've been thinking about mobile grooming, I told her. Bringing services to people who can't easily transport their pets, especially elderly owners or animals with anxiety issues. That's brilliant, Jessica replied. You'd be filling a real gap in the market. I threw myself into research, business planning, and skill development with an enthusiasm I hadn't felt in years. Without Lisa's constant interruptions and demands, I could focus completely on my own goals. The financial planning was challenging but manageable. I met with a small business advisor who helped me understand loan options and develop a realistic business plan. My credit had taken some hits from the debt I'd accumulated supporting Lisa, but it was fixable with time and discipline. You're in better shape than you think, the advisor told me during our second meeting. Yes, you've got some debt to work through, but you also have steady employment, valuable skills, and a clear vision for your business. Banks like to see that combination. I applied for a small business loan to purchase a used van and professional grooming equipment. While waiting for approval, I continued working at the shelter and started building my client base by offering discounted grooming services to shelter volunteers and their friends. The work was physically demanding. I'd forgotten how much standing and lifting was involved in animal care, but it was also deeply satisfying in a way my life hadn't been for years. When I successfully groomed a rescue dog that 3 other professionals had deemed ungroomable, or when I helped an elderly neighbor's arthritic cat feel comfortable and clean, I remembered why I'd wanted to work with animals in the first place. Asterisk if you're going through your own transformation right now, or thinking about making a major life change, please share this video with someone who needs to hear this story. Sometimes we all need to see that it's possible to start over, no matter what age we are. The unexpected recognition in June. My grooming instructor, Jessica, suggested I enter the Greater Boston Pet Show's new entrepreneur showcase. It's designed to recognize people starting pet care businesses in their first year, she explained. You'd be perfect for it. I was hesitant at first. I hadn't even officially launched my business yet. I was still waiting for my loan approval and van purchase. But Jessica was persuasive. Margaret, you've already built relationships with a dozen regular clients. You're doing mobile grooming out of your car trunk, and people are asking for your card. That's entrepreneurship. That's exactly what this award is meant to recognize. The application process forced me to articulate my business vision in ways I hadn't before. I wrote about my target market, pet owners who needed in-home services due to mobility issues, animals with anxiety or behavioral challenges, busy professionals who valued convenience and personalized care. I described my unique qualifications: 8 years of shelter experience, specialized training in animal behavior, certification in handling difficult cases, and a mobile business model that prioritized animal comfort over profit margins. Most importantly, I wrote about my motivation. At 58, I'm starting this business not just as a career change, but as a fulfillment of dreams I'd set aside for family obligations. I want to prove that it's never too late to choose yourself, to build something meaningful, and to turn your passion into purpose. The day of the pet show arrived in early July. I'd invested in a professional blazer, purple, because it was Robert's favorite color on me, and prepared a small display booth showing before and after photos of animals I'd groomed. The convention center was bustling with animal care professionals, pet owners, and vendors. For the first time in years, I felt like I belonged in a professional community. These were my people, individuals who understood that working with animals wasn't just a job, but a calling. I networked with other business owners, reconnected with contacts from my certification program, and even met Dr. Rodriguez, one of Boston's most respected veterinarians. I've been hearing wonderful things about your mobile grooming services, she told me as we chatted near the refreshment table. I have several elderly clients who would benefit from in-home pet care. Would you be interested in referrals? The conversation was exactly the kind of professional recognition I'd been craving for years. Here was someone treating me as an equal, a business owner, a professional with valuable skills and services. My phone vibrated during our conversation. I ignored it initially, fully present in this moment of professional connection. When it buzzed again, I excused myself to check quickly. Tommy had sent me several messages using Janet's phone. Emergency. Call back now, please. The familiar knot of anxiety formed in my stomach, but it felt different this time. Manageable, not overwhelming. I'm sorry, I told Dr. Rodriguez. Family emergency. But I'd love to discuss those referrals soon. I stepped into a quieter corridor and called Tommy back. Grandma, I'm so sorry to bother you, Tommy said, his voice tense. I'm at the hospital with Mom. She had some kind of panic attack, and they're keeping her for observation. She's asking for you. I closed my eyes and waited for the familiar wave of guilt and obligation. It came, but it was weaker than expected, diluted by my new sense of self-worth and boundary setting. Is she stable? I asked. Yeah, but the doctors want to talk to someone about her stress levels and living situation. And Janet doesn't know what to tell them. Through the corridor windows, I could see pet show attendees moving toward the main auditorium. The award ceremony was starting soon. Tommy, I understand this is stressful for everyone, but I'm at an important business event right now. I can come to the hospital this evening around 6. But Grandma, Janet took the phone. Margaret, this is your daughter we're talking about. Surely whatever pet thing you're doing can wait. Asterisk that phrase, whatever pet thing you're doing, perfectly captured how my family had always minimized my dreams. But I wasn't the same person anymore. Asterisk the old Margaret would have dropped everything immediately, abandoned her dreams for someone else's crisis. But I wasn't that person anymore. I'll be there at 6, I said firmly. Please tell the doctors I'll answer their questions then. I ended the call, took a deep breath, and rejoined the ceremony. Asterisk what happened next was a moment I'll never forget. After years of being told I wasn't good enough, after being mocked for my dreams, I was about to receive validation I never expected. The moment of validation, and the winner of the new Entrepreneur Showcase goes to Margaret Shin of Maggie's Mobile Pet Grooming. I sat frozen as my name echoed through the auditorium. Around me, colleagues and fellow business owners erupted in applause. Jessica, sitting beside me, grabbed my arm with excitement. That's you. Margaret, that's you. Go. I stood on shaking legs and made my way to the small stage. The crystal trophy felt substantial in my hands, real. Solid proof that my dreams and efforts were valued by people who understood this industry. Looking out at the audience, I saw faces I'd met that day. Professionals who'd listened to my business ideas with respect and interest. The validation was overwhelming in the best possible way. Thank you, I began, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. This means more to me than I can possibly express. I paused, thinking about the journey that had brought me to this moment. The past year has been the most challenging of my life. I made the difficult decision to step back from family obligations that had consumed 8 years of my life in order to pursue dreams I'd set aside for too long. The audience was listening intently, many nodding in recognition of their own entrepreneurial struggles. Starting a business at 58, while rebuilding both my finances and my confidence, seemed impossible some days. There were moments when I wondered if I was too old, too behind, too damaged by years of putting other people's needs before my own. I looked directly at Jessica, whose encouragement had meant so much. But working with animals taught me something important. It's never too late to heal, to learn new behaviors, to trust again. The same resilience I see in rescue animals every day was inside me too. I just had to be brave enough to access it. The applause that followed was warm and sustained. As I returned to my seat, several people stopped me to offer congratulations and business cards. Dr. Rodriguez approached with a genuine smile. That was beautiful, Margaret. And my offer for referral stands. I'd be honored to recommend your services. By the time I checked my phone again, it was nearly 5:30. I had missed calls from Janet and a text from Tommy, Mom's stable now. Take your time, Grandma. I gathered my things, said my goodbyes, and carefully secured my trophy in my equipment bag. As I drove toward the hospital, I realized something had fundamentally shifted. I was no longer responding to Lisa's crisis from a place of guilt and obligation. I was choosing to go as an act of kindness from a position of strength. Asterisk if this story is resonating with you. If you're seeing yourself in my journey, please hit that like button. Your engagement helps this message reach others who need to hear it. The hospital confrontation when I arrived at Lisa's room. The scene was exactly what I'd expected. Lisa was sitting up in bed, looking remarkably alert for someone who'd supposedly had a serious medical emergency. Janet sat in the visitor chair, playing her familiar role as concerned mediator. Tommy stood by the window, scrolling through his phone with obvious discomfort. Finally, Lisa said as I entered, her tone immediately accusatory. Nice of you to fit us into your busy schedule. I set my bag down, making sure the corner of my trophy box was visible. Hello, Lisa. I came as soon as I could after my business commitment ended. How are you feeling? How do you think I'm feeling? She snapped. I had a complete breakdown. I could barely breathe. And you were too busy playing with dogs to care about your own daughter. Janet cleared her throat. The doctor said it was stress-induced. They've given her medication to help with the anxiety. I nodded calmly. I'm glad it wasn't anything more serious medically. My measured response seemed to infuriate Lisa further. This wouldn't have happened if you hadn't abandoned me. I'm living in Janet's spare room. I can't afford anything, and I'm completely overwhelmed. I'm sorry you're having a difficult adjustment period, I said sincerely. Change is often stressful. Is that all you have to say? Lisa's voice was rising. After everything we've been through? After you've torn apart our family? I glanced at Tommy, who gave me a subtle nod of support. Lisa, I said quietly, I supported you financially and emotionally for 8 years. I postponed my retirement, abandoned my business plans, and put your needs before my own well-being. In return, you called me worthless and laughed at my dreams. Janet frowned. Margaret, what are you referring to? Tommy stepped forward with surprising maturity. The video, Aunt Janet. The live stream where Mom said horrible things about Grandma at her birthday party. Mom never told you about that, did she? Lisa's face went pale. That's completely irrelevant. Margaret is twisting things out of context. I reached into my bag and carefully pulled out my trophy, setting it on the bedside table where it caught the fluorescent light. The engraving was clearly visible. New Entrepreneur Showcase, Margaret Chun. I won an award tonight, I explained to Janet, for building a successful business despite significant personal challenges. Understanding dawned on Janet's face as she looked from the trophy to Lisa's defensive expression. I didn't come here to argue, I continued. I came because you needed medical support, and I wanted to make sure you were okay. I don't wish you harm, Lisa. I never have. But I also can't continue sacrificing my entire life for someone who doesn't value those sacrifices. The room fell silent. For once, Lisa had no sharp comeback, no manipulation tactic ready. She simply stared at the trophy, visible proof of the success she dismissed so cruelly just months earlier. I should go, I said softly. I have an early veterinary assistant class tomorrow. Veterinary assistant? Janet asked with genuine surprise. I'm training to become a veterinary assistant while building my grooming business, I explained. It's something I've wanted to do for years. As Tommy and I left the room together, I heard Janet's voice behind us, questioning Lisa in hushed, concerned tones. The conversation I'd avoided for months was finally happening, but this time, I wouldn't be the one defending myself. Asterisk that trophy sitting on Lisa's bedside table, visible proof of everything she'd said I could never achieve, was worth more than any argument I could have made. Sometimes actions really do speak louder than words. 3 months after the pet show, I stood in my crisp white veterinary assistant uniform, hand steady as I helped Dr. Martinez examine a nervous golden retriever named Buddy. Easy boy, I murmured to the anxious dog, my voice carrying the calm authority I'd developed over years of working with traumatized animals. We're just going to take a quick look at that ear. Buddy relaxed under my touch, his tail giving a tentative wag as Dr. Martinez completed her examination. Excellent work, Margaret, Dr. Martinez said as we finished. Your technique with anxious animals is really impressive. It's clear you have natural instincts that can't be taught. I smiled as I gently helped Buddy down from the examination table. Thank you. It feels like everything's finally coming together. The veterinary assistant program had been challenging. I was definitely the oldest student in my cohort, and it had been decades since I'd taken any formal classes. But my years of shelter experience and my new grooming certification created a foundation that served me well. My mobile grooming business, Maggie's Mobile Pet Care, was growing steadily. Word of mouth from satisfied customers had created a client base that kept me busy 3 days a week, which was perfect since I was working at the veterinary clinic the other 2 days. The financial picture was slowly improving too. I'd paid off the credit card debt I'd accumulated during my years of supporting Lisa, and I was actually contributing to a retirement account again for the first time in nearly a decade. Most importantly, I loved my work. Both the clinical precision of veterinary assistance and the creative artistry of grooming challenged me in ways I'd forgotten were possible. I was learning new techniques, building professional relationships, and contributing to animal welfare in meaningful ways. After my shift at the clinic, I drove to my next grooming appointment, Mrs. Wilson, an 82-year-old widow whose arthritic hands made it impossible for her to brush her Persian cat, Duchess. Oh, Margaret. Mrs. Wilson greeted me at her door with obvious relief. Duchess has been looking so unkempt lately. I felt terrible that I couldn't take proper care of her anymore. That's exactly why I'm here, I said, carrying my mobile grooming kit into her living room. Let's get Duchess feeling beautiful again. As I worked gently brushing out the mats in Duchess's long fur, Mrs. Wilson told me about her late husband, their shared love of cats, and her struggles with aging alone. You're such a blessing, she said as I finished trimming Duchess's nails. I don't know what pet owners like me would do without services like yours. These interactions, helping people maintain their bonds with beloved animals despite physical or financial limitations, gave my work a meaning that went far beyond just grooming pets. I was supporting relationships, preserving dignity, and using my skills to solve real problems for real people. Working with animals taught me something profound. It's never too late to learn new behaviors, to heal from trauma, to trust again. The same resilience I saw in rescue animals was inside me too. The unexpected recognition that evening. As I was cleaning my grooming equipment, my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. Hello. Is this Margaret Chen from Maggie's Mobile Pet Care? Yes, this is Margaret. This is Jennifer Walsh from Pet Business Today magazine. We're doing a feature story on entrepreneurs who've started animal care businesses later in life. Your name came up several times in our research, and we'd love to interview you. I nearly dropped the phone. Pet Business Today was the industry's leading publication. Exactly the kind of recognition that established credibility and attracted new clients. I'd be honored, I managed to say. The interview took place the following week at a local coffee shop. Jennifer was a seasoned journalist who'd covered the pet care industry for over a decade, and her questions were both professional and insightful. What inspired you to start your business at this stage of your life? She asked. I spent 8 years supporting my adult daughter's family financially, I answered honestly. During that time, I set aside my own career goals to focus on their immediate needs. Eventually, I realized that sacrifice without appreciation becomes self-destruction. Starting my business wasn't just about pursuing a dream. It was about reclaiming my sense of purpose and self-worth. That's a powerful story. What advice would you give to other older adults considering entrepreneurship? Don't let anyone tell you it's too late, I said firmly. Every skill you've developed, every challenge you've overcome, every relationship you've built, all of that becomes your competitive advantage. Age brings wisdom, patience, and perspective that younger entrepreneurs often lack. The interview was published 3 weeks later with a beautiful photo of me grooming a rescue dog at the shelter. The headline read, "Finding Purpose After Sacrifice: How Margaretchen Built Her Dream Business at 58. Within days of publication, my phone was ringing with interview requests from other publications, speaking invitations from business groups, and inquiries from potential clients who'd read the article. But the response that meant the most came from an unexpected source. Asterisk, if you've been inspired by this journey, please consider subscribing to Granny Stories. I share more stories like this every week. Stories about resilience, courage, and the power of choosing yourself. Ring that notification bell so you never miss one. The call that changed everything Janet called me on a Thursday evening in late August. I almost didn't answer. We'd had minimal contact since the hospital incident, and I wasn't sure I was ready for another intervention attempt. "Hello, Margaret? Do you have a minute to talk?" Her voice sounded different, hesitant, maybe even humble. "I have a few minutes," I said carefully. "I saw your interview in Pet Business today. It was really inspiring." I waited, unsure where this conversation was heading. "Margaret, I owe you an apology. A big one. I had no idea what you'd been dealing with all these years. When Lisa came to stay with me, I started to see." She paused, searching for words. "I started to see the patterns you must have been living with." My heart began beating faster, but I remained silent. "She expects everything to be handled for her," Janet continued. "The money, the childcare, the problem solving. She's been living with me for 4 months now, and she's never once offered to help with groceries or utilities. She assumes I'll just cover everything, because that's what family does." I closed my eyes, remembering all the times I'd made similar observations about Lisa's sense of entitlement. And when I mentioned that she might need to contribute financially to the household, she got angry. She said I was being selfish, that I didn't understand the pressure she was under. Janet's voice was filled with newfound understanding. "Margaret, is that what you lived with for 8 years?" "Among other things, yes. I'm so sorry. I accused you of abandoning her when really, you were the only thing keeping her from having to grow up and take responsibility for her own life." The validation I'd craved for so long was finally coming, but it felt different than I'd expected. Less triumphant, more sad for all the time we'd lost to misunderstanding. "The video Tommy mentioned," Janet continued. "Lisa finally showed it to me last week. Margaret, I am so ashamed that I sat there and listened to her tear you apart. I should have defended you. Janet, we've all made mistakes. No, let me say this. You were right to cut off support. You were right to choose yourself. And seeing you now, successful and confident and building this amazing career, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for having the courage to stop enabling her and start living your own life." I found myself crying, not from sadness, but from relief. After months of feeling like the villain in my family story, someone finally understood what I'd been through. "There's something else," Janet said. "Lisa saw the interview too." My stomach tightened, and she didn't say much. "But I think seeing you in that veterinary uniform, talking about your dreams and your success, I think it finally made things real for her. That you weren't just having a tantrum or going through a phase. that you've actually built a life without her. How is she doing? I asked, surprising myself with genuine concern. She's struggling, really struggling. She found a job at a call center, but the pay is low and the hours are unpredictable. She's talking about maybe going back to school, getting some kind of certification that would help her earn more money. That sounds like a positive step. It is. For the first time since Derek left her, she's talking about building her own skills instead of looking for someone else to solve her problems. We talk for another few minutes about neutral topics, Tommy's senior year plans, Janet's upcoming retirement, the weather. But the real conversation had happened. The acknowledgement I'd needed, the validation of my choices, the recognition that I'd been right to choose myself. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen with a cup of tea, looking at the trophy from the pet show that now sat on my counter next to my veterinary textbooks. The physical symbols of the life I'd built for myself, finally, at 58 years old. Sometimes the people who judge our decisions the harshest are the ones who haven't walked in our shoes. But time has a way of revealing the truth. Keep watching to see how this story reaches its beautiful conclusion. The full circle moment 6 months later, I was featured as the keynote speaker at the New England Pet Care Professional Conference. As I stood behind the podium looking out at an audience of veterinarians, groomers, trainers, and other animal care professionals, I marveled at how completely my life had transformed. 18 months ago, I was a woman who had forgotten who she was underneath the roles she played for other people. I was a mother, a grandmother, a financial supporter, a caregiver. But I had lost track of Margaret, the individual with her own dreams and potential. The audience was attentive, many nodding in recognition of their own struggles with work-life balance and personal identity. I want to talk today about the difference between service and sacrifice, I continued. Service is what we do out of love, choice, and mutual respect. Sacrifice is what we do when we've forgotten that our own well-being matters too. I talked about my journey from enabling to empowerment, from being taken for granted to being valued professionally. I shared the financial realities of what I'd given up, and more importantly, what I'd gained by choosing myself. Some of you might be thinking that what I did was selfish, I said. That abandoning family responsibilities to pursue personal dreams is the ultimate act of selfishness. But I've learned that the opposite is true. When we model self-respect, we teach others how to respect us. When we pursue our own growth, we give others permission to do the same. After my speech, the response was overwhelming. Business owners approached me with their own stories of family pressure and guilt about pursuing success. Older professionals shared their fears about starting over or changing careers late in life. Younger entrepreneurs asked for advice about setting boundaries with demanding family members. But the conversation that meant the most came from an unexpected source. "Excuse me, Miss Chen." I turned to see a young woman in her 20s, professionally dressed but with nervous energy. "I'm Sarah Mitchell. I'm actually Lisa's supervisor at the call center where she works." My heart jumped. "Oh, is everything okay?" "More than okay," Sarah smiled. "I wanted you to know that Lisa talks about you constantly. About your business success, your veterinary training, the interview in the magazine. She's incredibly proud of what you've accomplished." I stared at her in surprise. "She's also enrolled in online business classes," Sarah continued. "She says she wants to start her own customer service consulting firm eventually. She's one of our hardest workers, and she's always telling people that she learned about determination and resilience from watching her mother start over at 58. I felt tears welling up in my eyes. "I hope you don't mind me approaching you," Sarah said. "But Lisa mentioned that you two aren't speaking right now. and I thought you should know that she really has changed. She talks about wanting to make you proud, wanting to prove that she can be independent like you are. After Sarah left, I stood in the convention center hallway for several minutes, processing what I'd heard. Lisa was proud of me. Lisa was working toward independence. Lisa had learned something valuable from my choice to prioritize myself. Maybe, just maybe, choosing myself had been the gift Lisa needed too. Asterisk this is why I share these stories on Granny Stories. Because sometimes the hardest decisions we make, the ones that feel selfish at the time, turn out to be the most loving things we could do. Not just for ourselves, but for the people we love. The resolution and new beginning that evening, I called Tommy. Grandma, I saw the video of your speech online. You were amazing. Thank you, sweetheart. How are things with you? How's your senior year going? Good, really good. Actually, I wanted to tell you something. I got accepted to the veterinary technology program at Mass Bay Community College. Tommy, that's wonderful. What made you choose that field? Honestly, watching you these past 2 years, seeing how happy you are working with animals, how much you've grown and changed since you started following your own dreams. It inspired me to think about what I really want to do, not just what pays well or what other people expect. The pride I felt in that moment was different from any satisfaction I'd experienced during my years of sacrificing for Lisa. This was pride in Tommy's independent growth, his thoughtful choices, his courage to pursue his own path. I have some news too, Tommy continued. Mom wants to call you. She's been talking about it for weeks, but she's scared you'll hang up on her. What does she want to say? I think she wants to apologize. Really apologize. Not just say sorry to get you to start helping her again. She's different, Grandma. More grown up, I guess. She's been supporting herself for almost a year now, and I think she finally understands what that cost you all those years. I was quiet for a long moment, considering. What do you think I should do? I think you should listen to what she has to say. But I also think you should trust yourself to know if she's really changed, or if she's just saying what she thinks you want to hear. You're good at reading people now, Grandma. You'll know the difference. 2 days later, my phone rang with Lisa's number, a number I'd unblocked just that morning. Mom. Her voice was tentative, uncertain. Thank you for taking my call. Hello, Lisa. I saw your speech online. The one at the conference. I'm so proud of you, Mom. I'm so proud of everything you've built. I remained silent, waiting. I owe you an apology, she continued, her voice growing stronger. Not just for the things I said at your birthday party, but for 8 years of taking you for granted. For treating your sacrifices like they were just what you were supposed to do instead of recognizing them as the extraordinary gifts they were. She paused, and I could hear her taking a shaky breath. I've been living independently for almost a year now, Mom. Working full-time, paying my own rent, handling my own problems. And every single month, when those bills come due and I have to figure out how to cover them, I think about how you did this for me for 8 years while I criticized you for not being successful enough. Lisa, please let me finish. I understand now why you cut off support. I understand that I wasn't just taking your money. I was taking your dignity, your dreams, your sense of yourself as a person with value beyond what you could provide for me. Her voice broke slightly. I want you to know that I'm proud of who you've become. I'm proud that my mother is a successful businesswoman and a veterinary assistant, and someone who was brave enough to choose herself when everyone else was taking her for granted. Tommy shows me your magazine articles and tells me about your clients and your awards, and I think I want to be like you when I grow up. I found myself crying, not from sadness or anger, but from something deeper. Recognition, maybe. Love, certainly. The possibility of a relationship built on mutual respect instead of obligation. I don't expect forgiveness right away, Lisa continued. I know I have a lot to prove, but I wanted you to know that watching you rebuild your life taught me something important about resilience and self-worth that I never learned before. Lisa, I said softly, I never stopped loving you. I just had to stop enabling you. I know that now, and I'm grateful you did. Asterisk, this is what happens when we choose ourselves, not just for our own sake, but to model self-respect for the people we love. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is stop enabling someone's dysfunction. The life I chose today, as I sit in my home office planning next week's client appointments and studying for my advanced veterinary certification exam, I reflect on how dramatically life can change when we find the courage to choose ourselves. Lisa and I talk every few weeks now. She's been independently supporting herself for over a year, building her own business consulting practice, and making plans that don't involve anyone else solving her problems. Tommy is thriving in his veterinary technology program and often calls to discuss animal care techniques he's learning. My business has grown to the point where I'm considering hiring an assistant. I've been featured in 3 more industry publications and was invited to speak at the National Pet Care Convention next spring. Most importantly, I wake up each day excited about the work I get to do. The relationship with my extended family has improved as well. Janet and I are closer than we've been in years, bonded by our shared understanding of family dynamics and the importance of boundaries. Even some of the relatives who initially criticized my decision to stop supporting Lisa have come to respect my choice as they've watched my success unfold. I still volunteer at the animal shelter on weekends, but now it's truly volunteer work, something I choose to do because I love it, not something I do to fill the emptiness in my life. Most importantly, I've learned that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's essential. When we model self-respect and self-care, we give others permission to do the same. When we refuse to accept poor treatment, we teach people how to treat us better. When we pursue our own growth and dreams, we inspire others to pursue theirs. The trophy from the pet show still sits on my kitchen counter, next to my veterinary textbooks and business awards. But the real trophy is the life I've built, a life of purpose, respect, and genuine satisfaction. To anyone out there who's struggling with similar family dynamics, who's sacrificing their own dreams for someone else's comfort, who's forgotten what it feels like to be valued and appreciated, it's never too late to choose yourself. It's never too late to set boundaries. It's never too late to pursue the life you've always wanted. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your family is show them what it looks like to value yourself. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give is your own example of resilience, growth, and self-respect. Thank you for joining me today on Granny Stories. If this story has touched your heart or opened your eyes to patterns in your own life, please give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your engagement helps these important stories reach the people who need them most. Subscribe to Granny Stories if you haven't already. I share new stories every week about courage, resilience, and the power of choosing yourself. Ring that notification bell so you never miss one. Drop a comment below telling me about your own journey of setting boundaries or choosing yourself. I read every comment, and your stories inspire my next videos. And remember, beautiful souls, you are never too old, never too late, and never too anything to choose the life you deserve. Until next time, this is Margaret, reminding you that it's never too late to choose yourself.